Okay. Greetings and blessings, blessings and greetings, blessed soul. This is a first-time effort on our part, and you can see the sun is shining through our window blinds here in the playroom slash bedroom of my children. My name is Don Cecil Goodman. I am a Torah Askan, a Torah activist, and I want to share with you portions of a book which I was given permission to share with you by a Alan W. Cecil. I called him Alan B. I wrote in the intro. Please forgive me, Alan. I didn't put on my glasses before I typed in your name. Anyway, this is the book. It's called Secular by Design, A Philosophy of Noahide Laws and Observances by Alan W. Cecil. Now, Mr. Cecil, I believe, is the administrator of a Facebook group called 7 Universal Laws. And already we've had quite a fertile and potent dialogue via typing. But I thought that it would spice up the cholent, or the pot, the stew of human dialogue to engage more individuals outside this closed group. And also this is something which is that you can access, those who are invited, and eventually those who will be able to see the recorded version of this. So we're going to start off briefly by asking of the Creator of heaven and earth to guide us faithfully and with the humility to let the words of our heart and the cognitive faculties located within our mind to give forth good fruit in terms of pleasant and peaceful dialogue, and at the same time too, paradoxically, to stir the pot of other people's minds who perhaps have not thought of the practicality of implementing what are known as the Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noach, the 7 Noahide commandments, and take a perspective, as Mr. Cecil has so brilliantly done, to bring it down to a level where any person who is within the realm or the category of intelligent, and intelligence has many levels, and we have to hopefully be humbly aware of the fact that intelligence is multi-layered. No longer is it satisfactory except for those who want to use what I would consider to be some sort of obfuscation to use just the standard intelligence tests. Neither should we judge people by what they've accomplished scholastically in the school systems, because the school systems, for better or worse, have not, I think, actualized human cognitive potential in terms of implementing proper human conduct on a wide scale in this country, as well as any other country, although there is, to more or less a degree, a high level of civil conduct. I mean, we don't see civil wars and out violence breaking out every second in this country. It's not helter-skelter, and hopefully with the implementation and the awareness which is connected to the implementation of the teachings like Mr. Cecil, and hopefully when he quotes the Torah sources here, I can go a little bit more and elaborate on them. With that being said, I'd like to go right to the overview of this book. And Mr. Cecil started by quoting a Richard Hofstadter from a book that he had written in 1963, pulling from page 23. And the name of the book was called Anti-Intellectualism in American Life, was printed in Vintage Books. I guess it's a New York publishing company. So let's take a look at something that Mr. Cecil felt it was very important for us to take in as our first, so to speak, cup of tea of awareness of what this book is trying to focus on. It goes like this. Intelligence works within the framework of limited but clearly stated goals, and may be quick to share away questions of thought that do not seem to help in reaching them. Intellect, on the other hand, is the critical, creative, and contemplative side of mind. Well, let's maybe break that down for a moment. Now, intelligence, perhaps if we were to put it in its Hebrew form, could be referring to the old idea of haskala. Now, haskala can work, or intelligence, can work within the framework of limited and clearly set goals, because if we're talking about human intelligence, certainly we're talking about a limited consciousness, but we can attribute to intelligence that if we're talking about a normative consciousness, a healthy consciousness, there's some sort of clearly stated goal. One of the things that a Torah awareness or Torah consciousness tries to emphasize is what type of implementation, what type of bechein, what type of practical outcome are we trying to achieve. Now we have another person that's come on. We have a friend, Chaim Beck, up in West Hartford, Connecticut, but he's unable to join us. He's just listening in. Shalom Aleichem, Chaim. And we also have, well, it says Irk Barna. Can you identify yourself? So is that Professor Ross Barnard?
Yes, it is.
Professor, it is a pleasure to see you. I'm going to throw you a virtual kiss through this computer. Where are you, in Queensland, Australia right now?
Yes, I am. I am indeed.
Would you like to talk about the idea? There's a wonderful book that came out, printed by an Alan W. Cecil. He lives in Florida. It's called Secular by Design, A Philosophy of Noahide Laws and Observances by Alan W. Cecil. You can get on Amazon. I think you would be eating it instead of French fries with your down under veggie burger.
Okay, I'm trying to lose weight, but maybe.
I think this is probably no calories, but I think there's a lot of nutrition in this work by Mr. Cecil. So, Professor Barnard, intelligence and intellect. By the way, can you clarify for us, sir, what you are teaching? Is at the Queensland University in Australia?
That's correct, yeah, in Brisbane.
What are you teaching, sir?
I'm actually in charge of the biotechnology program.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Please elaborate.
So it's just after midnight over here.
Okay. It's after midnight. So, does that mean you're going to go on quiet mode, or you're going to wake up the neighbors with this conversation?
See how long? I'll see how long you can keep me awake, Don.
Okay. Well, I haven't put you to sleep yet, so I must be saying something relevant. Hopefully, we're going to get Dr. Goldstock, Rabbi Dr. Goldstock on. When I found that we have this option of live events through YouTube, why not? You know.
Sure.
So let me ask you. So let's. How do you view the concept of intelligence within the realm of scientific thinking and in general thinking? Because Mr. Cecil is quoting from a Richard Hofstadter, the idea of intelligence working within the framework of limited but clearly stated goals. How does that apply to scientific thinking?
Goodness me. There's a lot of different aspects to science. There's a method, there's an attitude, there's an approach to solving problems, there's a way of designing experiments in a way that can give you statistically testable answers. There's the Kuhnian definition of science, which is all about making intelligent guesses and then testing, falsifying what to find out whether your guess is correct or not, by which you get ever and ever closer to some probably unattainable truth. So it's a big question, Don. I guess there's the scientific method, the scientific intelligence, and then there's the distinction between the methods and the general approach or intelligence. It's not a simple question. Have you read Thomas Kuhn or Karl Popper?
Well, no,
You probably find you probably find them quite confronting, but the Kuhn especially is a brilliant treatise on the approach, on the scientific approach. But
mhm,
strangely enough, the one you might most appreciate is Heisenberg on physics and philosophy,
mhm,
because he makes the very good point that all of our science is just models and approximations to reality, and we can never be sure in advance how close our models or our approximations actually correspond to a reality.
mhm.
So,
I have
so
a
if
friend.
you've recommended me your book, and I'll recommend you Heisenberg's Physics and Philosophy in return.
Oh, okay.
I think you'll love it.
Maybe in the future, if I can get this book, we can look at it through the prism of Hasidic thought.
Yes.
Because see, Doctor, when I think of things of physics, I think of this as because as I understand it, this is the idea of analyzing concepts in energy and matter. And what I do not like is when people start to associate matters that are unknown to them, like say mystical parts of Torah, or what happens. To me, it creates an ethereality which becomes not tangible to the person who is interacting with things. And while on the one hand it could develop a
Yeah.
healthy attitude of awe, which these things should be approached with as anything in Torah, but
Yeah.
it also, like say we take intellect. Now intellect, like we talk about intelligence,
Well, I
which I
think you
think
pointed
is
to risk reducing everything to mechanism, reducing everything to numbers, and you lose the essence or the entire reality. You can miss the point.
true.
I think that's where you're going.
Well, true, because on the one hand, like for instance, the reason why I felt that it should be important to talk about this matter, although I didn't intend to talk about that aspect of Torah within this teaching, is that Haskalah, which I think is what the intention would be concerning, works within the framework of limited but clearly stated goals, is that a person, so to speak, gets into a certain mindset. And I've been learning for many years, and I'm sure you have too, is that intelligence actually should be more flexible than one's emotional content, because every human soul is contoured towards being, so to speak, right-sided, more oriented toward kindness, or left-sided, more oriented toward gavura, meaning restriction. Now, that's not, if a person is more kind-minded in their basic emotional DNA, let's say, I'm just borrowing a term from science, or they are more gavuridic, more strict in their emotional DNA, that doesn't mean they're lacking. It just the way, just like I write with my right hand, maybe you're ambidextrous. So, perhaps you can write better with your left hand, but I can write better than with my right hand than your right hand. It's just everyone, Hashem, God has given us a unique quality, and you from listening to the shows that I've done with Rabbi Goldsack or other things you've turned on. I like to leave a person, when they've interacted with me at any level, they should leave with no doubt that one thing that makes them unique in a way that no other human being can have that same uniqueness is they have unique tselem Elokim, a unique divine image. Because God loves, obviously, He loves multiplicity. He likes variety. And to quote a friend, sort of trying to plug back to within the context of science, Dennis Ryan, a good friend of mine, hopefully he'll join us in a future broadcast. He
I've
said
heard
that,
Dennis. I've heard Dennis on the
yeah,
previous
Dennis
shows.
Dennis has a favorite quote where he says, "Science has discovered what God has already created." So we're kind of shaving. We're taking little shavings. We're connecting to these little tidbits of godliness, which is now
I
coming down.
think
Not
we make
only, I'm sorry.
ever. I think we make ever and ever closer approximations, an asymptotic approach to what's already out there, what's already created. But I think we're overstepping if we think we can ever get the whole story by using those approaches.
True, true.
And that,
And
I'm a great fan of Aryeh Kaplan, the the orthodox scientist. You may have read some of his works on the origin of the universe.
True, true. Where I'm trying to go with this is that intelligence should actually be more flexible than one's emotional DNA. And unfortunately, what happens is, I think people, when they become too intellectualized, they actually are subconsciously giving into what is their natural state of being either more right brain oriented, or I'd say not right brain oriented, right, more in the kindness mode, or more in the severity mode. And this idea that Mr. Cecil is bringing out, that intelligence works within the framework of limited but clearly goals, and be quick to share away questions of thought that do not seem to help in reaching them, is, to me, this is not what Talmudic thought is. Now, Talmudic thought is saying, we have a concept, let's discuss it, we're going to agree to disagree, and we're even going to disagree we're going to disagree on what we agree on, but we walk away with, again, what I would consider to be a plasticity, a more flexible mind, to try to, how do we bring about what is a common consensus of what should be clearly stated goals in society, or individual goals. Like, for instance, I like to say this in relation to perhaps what this book is going to be. Again, it's over 400 pages. It's a wonderful book from what I've read quickly, and I've looked at the page and looked there. That, for instance, I give an example: a stop sign. A stop sign. I'm sure you have stop signs in Australia at the corners, and
indeed we do. They look just like the ones you have in the States.
Right. So a stop sign, to me, is one of the ways of fulfilling one of the 7 Noahide commandments, as well as one of the 10 commandments, concerning the averting premeditated murder, because it's like it's a warning, but it seems so common sense. But yet we see, when people have not paid attention to that sign, I would assuming, with no scientific basis or studies that I've read, that if a person ignores that stop sign, they're more likely to cause an accident than if they do pay attention to that sign. But it's a common sense thing. And in fact, I know in certain places where where I drive in Brooklyn, even if there's no stop sign and there's no traffic light, still one must take care at certain 4-way intersections to avoid being into an accident. So common sense of, say, the clearly stated goal of let us avoid an accident is ultimately rooted in the Torah of do not murder. Now I've simplified it very much so. Any take on this matter, sir?
But some of the laws in Torah are not immediately or obviously based in common sense. There are different types. There's the edut, and then there's various other types of commandments that are not necessarily intuitively or obviously related to common sense. The example you picked is that there are some that are not. For example, some of the dietary laws, maybe some of them were once based in common sense, but others we just adopt them because they're being commanded, not because they necessarily make any logical sense.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair comment, or?
No, well, yeah, you're talking about the chukim, but I remember seeing a teaching by one great teacher in this generation that mentioned that once something is revealed in Torah, it becomes, and especially when it's written down on paper, it's printed, I guess now it's going into the internet, it's going into cyberspace, it actually becomes, it attaches itself to the fiber of creation. Now, when that matter becomes attached to the fiber of creation, it becomes accessible for human souls to access it, to either accept it, reject it,
although perhaps not all of us can understand it. I think Rav Kook wrote a treatise on the different types of laws in the Torah, the three different types, and said that perhaps only some people had reached a level of consciousness where they could really understand on a common sense level some of these laws.
True, but but again too, for the Bnei Noach, they are not asked to their core requirement in terms of keeping the 7 commandments. It is not expected of them to attach them to the supra-rational commandments, but rather the mishpatim, those things which human intellect could otherwise, through environmental influences.
I agree. Yeah.
I'd like to end on this. I'm sorry, sir. You want to?
Yes, I agree.
We have like a time delay, so I don't know if it's a 3-second delay or 2-second delay. So please excuse me if I'm butting in when you're trying to make a point. I just want to end on one last point, and then this relates to the second type of let's say in the category of intellect, because we're calling it intellect now as opposed to intelligence. Intellect, which I would call seichel. Now, Mr. Richard Hofstadter, who Mr. Cecil quotes at the overview of his book, says, intellect, on the other hand, is the critical, creative, and contemplative side of mind. And to me, this is, maybe I'm sounding ethnocentric, to me, this is the Talmudic mind. This is the Shachvatari, the question and answer, response, counter-response, agreeing to disagree, disagreeing to agree. And this, I think, is where I know, growing up in America before I accessed the Torah education, knowledge seemed to be flowing in a very linear A, B, C, D, E, F, G, pattern. And then I remember when I started to move into subjects up until say 9th, or no, I'd say 10th grade, when I started to encounter things like geometry, I struggled with nonlinear type of mathematics. To me, division and multiplication of subtraction, to me, were very, very straightforward. In fact, as you're a little bit older than me, I used to use my mind as the calculator before they had these. Remember the cheap Casio calculators that came up.
Yeah.
So
I remember when they came in.
Right. That all seemed very straightforward to me. And I remember my father, as a professional engineer, had a slide rule calculator. If you remember those as well.
Yes, I've used one of those.
Right.
I've used one of those. They were great.
Right. Yeah. But when it came to geometry, and the truth is I'm more of a social science type of person anyway, because that's what my profession is, I struggled with it, but I think it wasn't because I was weak. I don't think in my early years they gave us a training, and I think I got a decent secular education through grade school, through high school, but there wasn't an emphasis to promote a critical, creative, and contemplative type of mind, because perhaps that wasn't seen as a productive use of school time.
Or they were just shooting too low.
Right.
They were just aiming too low. They were underestimating their audience, as teachers in some areas can do.
Let me ask you this: you were educated in Australia?
Yeah.
How would you say the state of secular education was in your youth?
It was great. It was great. I was very lucky. I went to a public school that we were very lucky with our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't shoot too low. They pushed the students who were high achievers, and they supported the ones who were not so fast. I was just very lucky.
How many years, Professor, have you been teaching at the university?
In my last job, 14 years.
Have you seen a change in the nature of student inquisitiveness?
Yeah, sure. Yes, because we've moved from an elite model of education to a mass education model, and that brings a lot of demands and changes the type of student that's being admitted to the university.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing more evolution in terms of supermassive online education and this sort of thing. And I do wonder about the quantitative skills of some of the students that are coming in now as well, compared to the emphasis on some of the core disciplines that we had when I was coming through. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned.
No, I think that is a concern in America as well.
Yeah.
That you know, a lot of one of my relatives went to a community college, and basically the first year is to basically get the youth, 18, 19 years old, to get them to the level where they're past their GED, or maybe they're working on their GED, which is general education.
So the first year of college becomes a remedial year, or trying to patch up what wasn't done in the earlier secondary education.
Right.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm going to close out because we intended, but this is you know, I hopefully
but it's great that we talked about the hukim and the mishpatim and the edut too from yeah.
True, but again, I'm sorry. My intent in doing this will be to be focusing more, you know, this particular type of, which I think I'm very excited by this live event option through YouTube and Google Plus, that hopefully we can get Rabbi Dr. Goldstock and other people. And I want to thank you, and hopefully we're going to get a little bit more into the book and other things. So again, by the way, it's by you? You're 20 hours ahead of me.
It's if you're on the East Coast of the U.S., you're about 14 hours behind. 14 hours behind.
Okay, so you're in Thursday morning already. So I wish you a sweet sleep. Thank you very much for your time.
You. And please send me the reference. Send me the details for that book, Don.
Okay, I can. I'll send you through. I'll send you through Facebook.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Have a sweet night, sir.
Thank you. Good night.